Good evening, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge meeting for Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. It is 7:32 p.m. This meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic and is in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this meeting was published in the Bergen Record on January 8, 2022, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on the borough's website. The notice included the dial-in and login information necessary for public participation and access to this meeting remotely. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included the dial-in and login information. During the public comment period of this meeting, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand button on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by the last four digits of your telephone number. You may mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone keypad. You must state your name and address prior to making a public comment. Members of the public were permitted to submit written comments prior to the meeting via mail or email, which will be read during the public comment period. With that, I turn to Ms. Steinle. Would you kindly call the roll, please?
All right, Mr. Mayor is absent excused because we will be hearing a D variance tonight. Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Ms. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Mervin?
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Here.
Mr. Cray? Oh, I think he's on mute.
Murray,
There he is.
here.
Mr. Eric Hellion? I don't see.
Mr. Eric Killian is excused this evening.
Okay. And Councilman Kenigo is also absent excused as we're hearing a D variance tonight. Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
Mr. Grasso is excused tonight, and Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Okay, also we have Mr. Behrens, our planner, and Jason Flores, who will be filling in for Rob Costa as our engineer tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Steinle. Good evening, everyone. First item on the agenda this evening is the approval of minutes. I believe we have minutes from the January 18th special meeting work session that were circulated. Any comments to the draft of the minutes that were circulated for review on the board?
Just that I apologize. It appears that my volume was in and out, but I read it over and I think Lisa did a nice job figuring out where I was silent. So I think it reads fine as far as my comments go.
Okay. Any other comments on the board? Okay, there being none, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolutions.
So moved. Gibbons.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. May I have a second?
Second.
Merman.
Mr. Merman, I think Mr. Esposito beat you to it. Photo
Wonderful.
finish. Ms. Steinle,
Okay,
we
we
wanna-
can do
do a voice vote on this?
a voice vote, except Mr. Cray was absent at the meeting.
Okay. Well, let's do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
I do.
Mr. Craig.
Stay.
All right. The minutes for the January 18th session are approved. Thank you very much. We do not have minutes yet for our January 26th meeting, and we do not yet have a memorialization for the Mary Powers application at 291 Woodland Avenue, Block 115, Lot 8. Therefore, we will move on to the next item, which is completeness review for Hernon Green, which was carried from the December 22nd, 2021 meeting. This is 199 Bogart Road, Block 1207, Lot 30. There's been a request by the applicant due to certain conditions. They were unable to make this evening's meeting. They have requested that the application again be carried to, I believe it was March 23rd meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for the board's information, there apparently were some matters that came up on the applicant's side. Their counsel requested this additional adjournment. In the meantime, we understand that there are some violations that are outstanding with regard to compliance on the property. And the recommendation's been made that as a condition to approving, if approval is voted to carry the application, that the outstanding violations be addressed between now and March 23rd. So any questions from the board?
I had one comment to that, just that the board could condition the adjournment that such that the applicant will appear with an engineer and a corrective action plan, or the board may dismiss the matter without prejudice, and the borough could proceed with the violations if they're still outstanding.
Okay, so with that additional context, I would entertain a motion from the board to carry this application out to March 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I think I Mr. Cray on the first and Mr. Esposito on as a second.
And this would be contingent on them having to pay the fines that were listed in the application between now and then, or no?
No, it's the hope is that by the March 23rd meeting, the applicant will have an engineer present at the meeting, or someone that can testify to the board engineer's report regarding recommendations and suggestions to correct the violations.
Okay.
So they have to be prepared for the March 23rd meeting, essentially.
So
Okay.
it's less of a compliance than more of an action plan is what I'm hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so first, Mr. Cray, second, Mr. Esposito. Okay, Ms. Steinle, could you call the roll?
Okay. Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes. And for the record, Mr. Esposito is seated to vote tonight. The Hernan Green application for 199 Bogart Road, block 1207, lot 30 will be carried to the March 23rd meeting on the condition that the applicant be prepared to address the board engineer's report, or the application may be subject to dismissal without prejudice.
And Mr. Chairman, to that point, I think you have a panelist labeled Managed Construction. I think he's here for that application. You may want to let him know that he doesn't have to stick around.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Variance. I was actually just going to make that announcement if there's anybody who's in attendance this evening for the Hernan Green application at 199 Bogart Road. That application will not be heard by the board this evening. It will be heard March 23rd.
Ms. Steinle, I just have a question about this. So how long can they continue to push this back? Do we have a limit to the amount of months that they can push this back?
That's why we're trying to set the date for March 23rd.
And I know this
Right
is the second time we've done this.
Yep,
That's
this
why
is
I'm
the
asking.
second time. No, there's not a limit, but the zoning officer, Mr. Behrens, did allow the applicant to come before the board as a solution to correcting the violation. So we don't want things to be delayed further.
Gotcha. Okay. Hopefully we can hear it next month. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. All right, that takes us into, we'll pass off the new business this evening. Takes us now into the old business portion of our agenda. This is Paul I. Perkins and Belkis A. Almanzar Perkins, 311 Kinderkamack Road, block 1004, lot 26. subdivision into two new building lots, seeking approval for the subdivision on the site. Good evening, Mr. Barrett. I believe you're here.
Yes,
and I
Mr.
believe
Chairman, thank you.
I believe your clients are also in the audience as well this
They
evening.
are here. And we have our engineer, Mr. McClellan, with us as well.
Okay, very good. Good evening, everyone.
I do inquire, all 7 sitting board members eligible to vote on this application?
Yes, so I can just go through a brief procedural history on this matter. The Perkins application was initially came before the board on May 26, 2021, where it was deemed complete. Then the board experienced technical difficulties with the Zoom meeting, so then the hearing had to end abruptly. The applicants came back on June 23rd, 2021, and we began the hearing with everyone present except for Mr. Pfeffer. However, Mr. Pfeffer completed a certification that he watched the recording of the June 23rd, 2021 hearing. So he was eligible to participate in the next hearing, which was on September 8th, 2021, where all members were present except for Mr. Grasso, and he is also not present tonight. So all members who are here today are eligible to vote and to hear this application. Also of note, at the September 8th, 2021 hearing, the board took a vote and stated that the applicant only needed to appear with his engineer tonight to provide engineering testimony. But it looks like we also have the applicant's architect here.
That is correct.
Okay, and everyone was duly sworn to testify, and their oath will continue tonight.
Thank you very much. Just briefly, I know it has been some time, and for that we apologize. A variety of factors came into play, but I believe that the board will be pleased with the plan that is now being presented, which has addressed comments that were made in previous meetings by the board members. Ms. Boland had had commented that she didn't understand why we would need a coverage variance for the existing home when we were planning an addition. That has been addressed. The coverage for the existing home with the addition will be less than 35%. Mr. Gibbons had commented on the fact that the rear property line, which in essence visually is a sideline, is so close to the proposed property line. In order to attempt to alleviate that concern, the new home was located 12.5 feet to the west of the proposed property line, thereby creating an 18-foot separation between the two houses if the board sees fit to approve the application. That is the distance that is required by the zoning ordinance between homes, and that has been satisfied with this new plan. Mr. Costa had commented on the fact that the garage was not flush with the house. That too has been addressed with the new plan. And I believe Mr. Merman had wanted to see details on the new place. Hence, we brought the architect along with us tonight to answer any comments there may be. And it is evident on the revised site plan that there is compliance with all of the requirements of the ordinance except for lot width and for lot area, which of course is a result of the location of the existing home on this oversized lot and the need to accommodate the existing home. There was a letter we received sent to the board February 2nd by Mr. Costa. And I don't know if you want us to address that first or just have the engineer address the revisions to the plans from that which was previously presented.
if the engineers can address the changes in the plans, and if they cover what's in Mr. Costa's letter, then that's fine too. If we, to the extent we don't cover anything, we can come back to it.
All right. Ms. McClellan?
Oh, you are on, you were sworn in at a previous hearing, and so you remain under oath tonight.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ms. McClellan, if we could turn perhaps to Mr. Costa's comments on the plan that you revised and submitted to address his concerns as set forth in that letter.
Sure. I just run through first item has to do with the existing sanitary sewer line, and if we were to get approval, we will definitely have that inspected. He's recommending to add a additional drainage for the additions for the house on lot 26.01, which we will do and submit drainage calculations. As far as lighting, it's just, there's nothing on site other than, regular lights for, it's just lights that would be, with the normal home. There's no street lights or lamp posts, and none to be proposed. It's going to be 2 residential homes. As far as the miscellaneous comments, I'll take a little time to address this. The current macadam driveway on lot 26.02, and if I can just share my screen.
Yes, please go ahead.
So there's a large driveway. I'll just trace it real quick so you can see the extent of it. It comes to the garage, comes back past the garage, follows this curb line, and all the way out to the street. So that macadam driveway will be removed. And I know I just kind of stressed this at the last hearing, and I'll just go over it briefly. That driveway is almost 4,100 square feet. And just to put that into retrospect, with the lot 26.02, when we fully developed this lot with a house, a driveway, a walkway, air conditioning units, and a patio, the total coverage of that lot will be 3,700 and 2,400, so approximately 2,500. So that driveway is about 1,500 square feet larger than all the improvements will be on that lot if we were approved. And that's 4,100 square feet of impervious surface that has no retention. All the water that falls on that driveway accumulates and goes right out into Howland Avenue. We'll be replacing that with a house. They'll have roof leaders that'll go to seepage pits, and less total impervious coverage. So the removal of this driveway has a very positive drainage impact for the property. As far as the next bullet point, there's a retaining, I know I discussed this too last on the app. There's a retaining wall that's right on the property line that we're proposing. It's a railroad tie retaining wall, and we will be relocating that to be completely on lot 26.01. We will, if we're approved, we'll provide driveway details, sidewalk details, curb details. That takes care of the 4 bullet points. The existing driveway apron along Howland Avenue is not conforming, as the curb cut is greater than 20 feet. That's going to be, as I just mentioned, going to be removed. to eliminate that nonconformity. Our proposed driveway is 27 feet wide, where 22 was allowed. And as I testified to last time, it's 27 foot wide. Scroll down here. If you go from here to here, and that's because we want to provide a turnaround, so we do not have to back out onto Holland Avenue. If you've been to the site or tried to come out of the existing driveway, you know, the cars come down Kinnicamack and turn and go up Holland at a fairly rapid pace. If the light is green, you know, it's much easier to pull forward out of that driveway than it is to back out. So we want to provide this turnaround area to make it easy to maneuver in the driveway. Let's see, the next bullet point, the proposed driveway apron and curb cut shown for lot 26.2 shall conform to the borough ordinance, which it will. I didn't show any grading on the property since this is just a layout we're looking to do, but if we are approval, if we do get approval, we'll submit a site plan that will have all the grading and drainage for this property. And there's a wall currently right here that runs along the entire length of the proposed lot, and I have it kind of grayed out here. Obviously it'll be removed for the portion of the driveway. We may keep some of it and relocate it or in a different direction just to assist with the grading, because we do have some slope here. And that will be shown on the site plan as well. Lastly, the applicant should show whether there is a reduction in impervious area from the existing proposed improvements. And I just mentioned that about the size of that driveway. So as the property as a whole, if you're looking as it sits today, the impervious coverage is 8,650 square feet, or 48.5%, where only 35 is allowed. If we were granted approval, our total impervious coverage on both lots will be 2,480 plus 3,720, or about 6,200 square feet. So when we're done with this project, we'll be eliminating approximately 2,400 square feet of impervious surface. And both our lots will go from having one large lot that's non-conforming in impervious coverage to two smaller lots that will both be conforming to impervious coverage. So that will make a large difference for the amount of bulk on both properties, as well as drainage conditions. Approvals required. We'll have to file with Bergen County Soils because we'll be disturbing more than 5,000 square feet of area, and also because Kinnicamack is a county road, we will have to file with Bergen County Planning Board as well. And then just the general comments as far as escrow fees. If approval and everything's built, we'll do as-built surveys and submit those to the building department for both properties. Construction activities will only be conducted during the hours stipulated by city ordinance. We'll comply with that. Anything that gets damaged will, by the results of construction, will be replaced. And lastly, as far as following OSHA guidelines, I'm sure that the contractors that will be doing the work will follow those. I think that covers the letter pretty well. Just as far as the variances that he has in his chart, we are seeking a front yard variance for proposed lot 26.01. We're asking for 25 feet where 30 is required. We do meet the required front yard on Kinnicamack Road, but we're asking for the front yard setback variance on Howland, and that is so we can construct a garage. The existing house that's there does not have an attached garage, has a detached garage, which is right here. So we're asking for a front yard variance to have a detached garage, but by the removal of the existing garage, will be eliminating 3 existing nonconformities. Accessory structures have to be 4 feet from the property line. To the side here, we only have 2.2 feet. In the rear, we only have 3.1 feet, where 4 is required, so we're removing both of those. And then also, this garage is 566 square feet, where the code only allows it to be 450. So we'll be removing that nonconformity as well. As far as the height, we're doing an addition. Nothing changes. The peak that's there now is going to remain the highest point. So it is listed as a variance, but it's exactly how it will exist there today. Rear yard, I believe, is the last setback. So now, since we're subdividing the property and our existing house faces Kinderkamak, our rear yard will be 5.4 feet. And as Mr. Barrett pointed out, it almost, for anybody coming up or that sees these 2 lots, it more or less acts as or looks like a side yard. And we do provide the 18 feet between our existing structure and the proposed structure, which is required by code. As also mentioned on the chart, we are seeking 2 variances for the proposed lot. 26.02 lot area is 7,098, where 7,500 is required, so about 400 square feet short. And then lot width, we're at 65.23, where 75 feet is required. So it'll be two variances for the creation of the lot, and then there'll be no bulk variance requirements. We'll meet the front, rear, both sides, combined side, impervious coverage, and building coverage. So there'll be no bulk required variances for the proposed 26.02. I think that sums it up.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan.
Okay, I'll turn to our professionals right now, Mr. Barron's.
Thank you, Mr. Caslin. I do have just a few questions to clarify a few comments. Mr. McClellan, can you confirm that that lot 26.02 can park at least 3 cars in order to comply with RSIS requirements? The garage opening, I think, is about 16 feet wide, so it appears to be a 1-car garage. And then it would be, the driveway width, I think, would determine how many cars can fit in the driveway. So do you have those figures, or
Yes.
can you confirm either way?
Sure. So I believe Mr. Costa mentioned in his letter that it has to be, in order for it to count for 3 cars, will have to be 20 feet wide. And we are we're 18. So we'll have to widen that driveway by 2 feet in order to have, even though 18 is enough to park 2 cars, and the driveways all over there are 18 feet that can park 2 cars. Typical parking spots are 9 feet wide. The RSIS standard is if you have a 1-car garage and a 20-foot wide driveway, then that would that is the code to have 3 parking spaces. So we'll have to slightly widen our driveway.
So the 18-foot width dimension, though, is that at the widest point or the narrow point by the driveway apron? Is 18 feet.
That's up by the garage.
Oh, but that's 18 feet.
Yeah, so it will be 20 up by the garage, and then it'll transition as we get closer to the curb.
All right, and obviously that would factor into your coverage calculations, so you'd have to play with that.
Yeah, so we'll have to do a little bit of reduction in order to get the proper size garage.
Right. All right. General comment I don't think we have the equipment locations shown on the plan, air conditioning units, et cetera. You know, at some point, we would have to make sure they're in compliant locations. That's a minor thing. We don't have much information as to the grading, particularly on lot 26.02. The house height for the new house is proposed to be 30 feet. And we don't really have the height calculations for that. So it's hard to determine if that'll be compliant as you're building it to the, you know, uppermost extreme. So that'll be something we need to see. And related to grading too, I think there are a number of retaining walls proposed, which we don't have the details for. And any walls that extend into the front yard can only have a maximum height of 3 feet. So I don't know if you have any information on that or if you'd have to think about it.
Yeah, so as far as the grading, as far as the height, what I would, when it came to that point for site plan approval, I would figure out the grades, and I would set the first floor, and then the architect would have to design within the limits I gave him to make sure that, our roof peak is conforming. As far as, there's probably going to be some retaining walls on this site, just looking at it from how the grade goes. But nothing has been set in stone as of yet.
All right, thank you. I think as a condition at one of the prior meetings, we talked about installing a solid fence along the northerly and westerly site lot lines. Is that still something the applicant is willing to adhere to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. In reviewing the revised plan, I noticed there's a patio now on proposed lot 26.02. I guess, to be blunt, it appears a bit small to be functional. And I think there was some discussion from your team that you might be able to expand that and make it more useful and tweak other aspects of the proposed development, again, so that the borough doesn't run into the issue of the site, the house taking up most of the land and then somebody having to come back and request variance relief in the future for a functional patio or a shed or something like that. Is that something that would be doable? I think it's about 80 square feet right now, 8 by 10 or so.
Yeah, I think we talked about it, and I believe we want to go by at least a 12 by 12 patio. So the house you see here is gonna look very similar. We're just gonna have to pull some walls in on each direction just to get that extra 40 or so square feet for the patio, an extra 60 or so square feet for the driveway.
But meanwhile, you're also talking about expanding the driveway. Yeah, at some point, you're going to obviously have to resolve this and come up with a conforming plan. So I'm just throwing that out there. Is the cantilever of the house in the rear factored into the building and impervious coverage calculations?
It is, yes.
Reviewing my notes, that's all I have at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barnes. I'm sorry, gentlemen, Costa Engineering, good evening. Any comments?
Good evening. No, the only comment that I have is that I'm gonna address what Roy Tom said. It's very hard for us to see the grading because it's just a layout plan. You're definitely gonna need retaining walls, between both properties just because of the grade. You will have to, the retaining wall that is on the existing lot 2602, that's a retaining wall that we actually, installed a couple of years ago with the grant money. So that wall will have to be either restored once installed in the driveway. Drainage needs to be addressed. It's very hard right now to know the drainage because, you need to account for the driveway to be wider just to comply with the RSIS. And then also, the patio. So at some point, you have to come out with a plan where you have, all those items addressed, including the grade and the drainage. And that's it. That's the only comment I have. It's very hard to just make a actual comment right now because we have no information that we can, clearly see on this plan.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's open up to questions for the board. Ms. Boland, can we start with you?
I think that Mr. and Mrs. Perkins did a nice job addressing our prior comments. My only question is on the existing home, the garage addition. Is that the same situation where it's a one-car garage and you'd have to do the 20 feet, or is that a car garage?
That I will let, I believe this is a two, but I'll let the architect answer the number of garages or bays for this garage.
Okay, I'll save it for later then.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. Mr. Gibbons.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. So, and I don't know if this would necessarily be for you or for the applicant, but so are we actually proposing that this house is going to be, if subdivided, this house will actually be built in the very near future? I know originally when the Perkinses came in, it was a maybe someday we're going to build this house. So has that changed? Or are they actually going to be building this house soon?
Is it okay if I answer directly on that?
That's fine by me. Yeah, just
Okay. Yeah, as soon as we get, God willing, if you approve us, we will start our financing right away. We would like to have this built by next winter. Yes, sir.
okay. And that was, I guess, for a family member, right? That was the intent.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. All right. So then this would be more for the engineer. So so we have two turnarounds. We have one for lot 2602 and one for lot 2601. I noticed the one on 2601 is significantly bigger than the one on 2602. And I guess we're asking for a variance for that. So is there a reason that one needs to be bigger? I mean, obviously I know one's closer to Kinnecmack, but is there a reason that you needed to have more space on that one?
No, that just like, you know, for lot 26.02, since it's just kind of for subdivision approval, I didn't really do any grading. You know, just kind of how I put it in there for now, but no, it is no reason for the differences in the K-turn areas.
Okay. And I'm not sure if this would be maybe for Mr. Barron's. Do we have a setback for that driveway? Do they need to be a certain distance from that property line? So we're talking for 2601. It looks like it's very close to that property line. Is there a number that we need to be further apart?
Well, there's a minimum 2-foot setback. It looks like it's probably compliant, you know, or
I can
close.
give you the exact number. I know that the code was 2 feet.
Right.
So I have it at,
I wasn't sure if it was more than that. It didn't look like a lot, but it certainly could be 2 feet.
yeah, I'm at 2.8 feet.
Okay, so we're good there. That's it for now. But thank you for, and I guess we'll talk about with the architect, but thank you for taking into our account certainly my issue with how close we were to the property line. So but that's it. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Mr. Esposito.
I'm okay with it. I'm fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Pfeffer.
Yeah, I just have a question regarding the on the 26.01 lot. When cars are coming out of the driveway, I noticed that there's a stone planter proposed there. I'm not sure. I'm familiar with the property, but I can't remember now if that stone planter is there already. But in any case, this is my concern, and I'd like to hear just how it can be addressed. As was mentioned, cars turn onto Howland from Kinnecmack. They make a right turn onto Howland. There's already a retaining wall there. We've got a couple of trees there. And I would just be mindful of not adding any additional obstructions or potential obstructions to the site view for cars that are exiting the driveway. They should have as clear a sight as possible in both directions. So I don't know if anyone wants to address that, but that was just a concern that I wanted to raise.
Sure. So that stone planter and lamppost is existing And we most certainly can remove that.
Okay,
Mr. Favre, I would just add that the applicant will have to comply with all site distance requirements. So any retaining walls, plantings, what, will have to be
Sure.
under, I think it's 30 inches or whatever it is to, in order to make safe maneuvers into and out of the property.
okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Tom, just along those, Mr. Barron's along those lines, is that hold true for the paver wall that's being substituted on 26.02 for the existing retaining wall?
I think it would have to. Again, we don't have necessarily the final details or layout on that. I'm not an engineer, so I'm dabbling into territory maybe where I shouldn't be, but I think they would have to be compliant in that regard. Maybe the applicant's engineer could chime in on that.
Yeah, so just, I'm showing it to be removed here. Yeah, we might I believe the county is going to have us come from a point 15 feet from the curb line. We're gonna have to be able to see in both directions. So I showed this to be removed, and we'll probably end up with a wall somewhere here. So when we come out at a point 15 and we look in both directions, we're gonna have to make sure that there's no obstructions that are over 2.5 feet in that area. So we'll have to keep that site distance clear.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Cray.
Yeah, it's just one comment / question, and it's, I think I mentioned this in the original hearing. I'm still a little bit hung up on the language in the municipal code that says no lot or lots in single ownership hereafter shall be reduced so as to create one or more non-conforming lots, which is exactly what we're doing. And I guess it's something that when I read a specific prohibition, it carries more weight than a standard that you try to meet and you can get a variance from. And I guess I'd like to hear a comment on that from Mr. Baird or from the engineer on why that prohibition that is specific should be ignored in this case.
I can address that. I think it's for the same reason that, in my opinion, we are entitled to a variance, and that's because of the existing home, its location. If this was a barren piece of property, there would be no problem creating two lots that are conforming. I think also that if you look at the exhibit that was introduced by our planner, it showed a number of undersized lots in the area, as well as those which have similar or less frontage than we are proposing. So notwithstanding the exact language in the ordinance, that's why we have a provision for variances, that in particular situations, a variance is required to properly develop the property. And in this instance, I think, again, the location of the home, it's only 400 feet short. We have the existing lot is still going to be, is it 10,000? I'm not even sure the exact number. Substantially larger than is required. And again, I think that it is just a general provision in the ordinance, which should carry no more weight than any other requirements in the ordinance. And we're seeking a variance from that provision as well then, as well as the two bulk variances that we do require.
Okay, well, again, my sense is that a specific prohibition carries more weight than one of the other standards. And, obviously, the variances on existing lots that are undersized or that have hardships, I understand, but to create the hardship when it's specifically prohibited just seems to me concerning. But I understand your point, and I thank you for the explanation. And
Thank you.
that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Craig. Mr. Merman.
Since we're discussing driveways, I would like to recommend that when a final grading plans are done and so forth, that Howland Avenue eastbound or downhill, that we put no turn signs into the driveways that we're creating. For the board's information, there's the uphill, if you proceed from Kinderkamak uphill, there's no left turn into driveways for the southern side of Howland. And one of the reasons I offer this recommendation is about 10 days ago, we had some weather that there was some serious accidents at this intersection on Howland downhill. So I hope to maybe add a little more safety there. So I would offer that for consideration. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. All right, at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public for comment. Motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Gibbons.
Gibbons. Have a second?
Second.
I think I heard Mr. Pfeffer in there for a second. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, at this time, we're now open to the public for comment. Ms. Kaufman, do we have anyone in the audience?
We do not.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
So me, Merman.
Okay, Mr. Pfeffer and Mr. Merman with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, at this time, we are now closed to the public for comment. I will entertain a motion at this time on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make some final comments as a board member on the application itself.
All right, very good. Please proceed.
If I
Mr.
may.
Merman.
I've sat back and I've looked at this area, and particularly for some of the newer board members, I kind of did an overview of Lower Kinderkamak area and its earlier development. As a result of, we wound up with a lot of large residents on larger lots, and many of those residents were for professionals. An example being the Dr. Kreisel property, which now has become Newbridge Crossings facility. Recently, we had the White Colonial up at the corner of Wayne, which was an accounting office. We did a subdivision in there. And of course, we have the Perkins site here. So that's how we got some large lots in this general downtown area in its initial development. I've looked at the proposed subdivision. I've listened to the professionals' testimony, the architects, the engineer, and the planner. And I look at the facility that remains there currently, and that goes back to the earlier development. And that's about a 200-year-old facility on approximately a 18,000 square foot parcel. In my discussion with the architect during his testimony, he says there's no historical listing or any similar designation for that structure. So that structure is not protected. If I sit back and do an overview of this particular site, I come away with the impression that the applicant is attempting to shoehorn a smaller hypothetical, smaller single-family residence into this giant parcel. As a result, it creates a monster development with practically no rear yard for 2601. And I went back and I looked at the minutes on September 8th of 2021 minutes. Our borough planner, after discussion with the applicant's engineer, our borough planner made a statement, and I'm going to quote, "The board has to decide whether or not their proposed subdivision is a better planning alternate than a conforming subdivision." In other words, if the house was taken down and we started with a bare sheet of paper and we came in with two conforming residences. And after careful consideration of all of this, I must admit that I do agree with the borough planner, and therefore I'm not going to be able to support in this current subdivision. I cannot support this application. That's my statement, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Merman. Mr. Barrett, would you like us to poll the board members for their opinion at this time prior to taking any action?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would appreciate that.
Okay. So we've heard Mr. Merman's analysis and position on the application. Let me go around to the members of the board and I ask if you would indicate your standing at this time. Mr. Gibbons, why don't we start with you?
You know, this is a tough one, and I've had issues with it, you know, from the get-go of how large we're, you know, making houses here. And again, as Mr. Cray had said, you know, creating smaller lots isn't necessary in our town. You know, if we were to approve this, and I was going to mention this before Mr. Merman spoke, but you know, we have a lot of people that come in with these small lots and then ask for, you know, the patios and things. I would like to see, if we do pass this, you know, some sort of stipulation that there is a 2-car driveway and there is an adequate space for patio and a shed, which are the things that people come in and ask for on a regular basis. You know, because I don't want to be creating another problem where the next resident of that property has to then come from another variance from us asking so they can have a patio and a shed, which are what people are looking for. You know, I'm torn on this one. I'm leaning towards yes, but you know, but I am torn on, you know, is this the best use of the space for our town?
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Ms. Bowen?
I agree with Mr. Gibbons. I think the fact that you can make 2 conforming lots is a plus. That they're not conforming, the fact that you can, the fact that the existing coverage is substantially more than what will be proposed when it's subdivided, and based on the testimony that they will put in a adequate patio and reduce the home accordingly, and also with an adequate driveway and patio and reduce the home. I did not think of a shed. I think Mr. Gibbons is right. People do come in for sheds, so if that could be added to it as well and reduce the home accordingly. Actually, in both cases, that they come in with conforming coverage, I would be more apt to approve the subdivision, providing conforming coverage, including an adequate width of the driveway and a shed as well, and the patio that they testified to.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Mr. Pfeffer?
Yes, I'm inclined to support the application. I think the applicant has been very accommodating and flexible in listening to and responding to all the questions and concerns. You know, I tend not to like to make the perfect the enemy of the good. So while we can all probably come up with visions of how we can design a better space for these lots or this lot, I think what's being proposed and what the owner wants to do is satisfactory, as long as it, takes into account all the comments and concerns that we've discussed so far tonight. So, and I think that they're prepared to do that. So I would support the application.
Mr. Esposito.
I certainly would say yes to the support of this. I'm looking forward to it. I think that it will give us some really good things to look at when they're built. Thank you.
Mr. Craig.
Yeah, I would not support this. I think, there's two items that concern me. The first is that lot 2602, which is now an undersized lot, which already needs variances, is also being developed to the maximum coverage allowed. And we can say anything we want to say here today about, is the patio big enough and does it have a shed? There is nothing that we can do to stop the next owner to come in and ask for a variance to put in a pool or to put in whatever it is they don't have that they decide they need for their quality of life, which we've been dealing with on a consistent basis for several years now. So creating that condition again, I think, is contrary to everything we're trying to do. And I understand, that they've listened to a lot of concerns and made some different accommodations. But at the end of the day, that is a major issue, and it can't be addressed with this design. And that being the case, I can't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. I'm also, as you've heard from the other board members, I'm somewhat torn in terms of the application here, and I do appreciate that the effort, certainly in the resources expended by the applicant to address the various concerns that have been raised thus far, in demonstrating their willingness to work with us and address our issues. And along the lines of what Mr. Pfeffer articulated a few moments ago, I fall in the same camp. So I would be inclined to support the application, as difficult as this one is. But with that said, Mr. Barrett, I turn to you at this point, and if you'd like, we can continue and take action this evening, unless you want to consider the board's position at this time.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, could we have 5 minutes so that I can give my client a call and we could just discuss this?
Sure. Why don't we? It's 8:30 on the dot at this moment. Why don't we take a 10-minute recess? We'll reconvene at 8:40 p.m. Does that work for you, Mr. Barrett?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to briefly adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. I have a second.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Esposito, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we stand adjourned for 10 minutes. We will reconvene at 8:40 p.m. Thank you. Sorry, brief recess, not adjournment. Wrong term. Time now is 8:40 p.m. Let's reconvene the meeting. Ms. Steinle, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Caslin,
Here.
Ms. Boland. Oh, she's
Here.
on mute. Here.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Merman,
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer.
Here.
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons,
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Okay, we're all back.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steinle. Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that opportunity. We would like to move forward this evening. We would appreciate it if the board would approve the application with the stipulation that the size of the house will in fact be reduced in order to accommodate the required driveway width. in order to provide a patio, which is a minimum of 144 square feet. And in addition, to provide an additional 1% just in case. So to reduce the coverage of the house to allow those two additions that were mentioned, the patio and the shed, and still leave 1% left over for the future as a minimum.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So with those stipulations, at this time, I would ask it for a motion from the board on the application, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Merman.
may I start a motion from which the board members and that can build upon, and we'll come up with a final consensus motion?
I would appreciate that.
Okay. Regarding the Perkins, Paul Perkins and Belkis Perkins application for a subdivision at 311 Kinderkamack Road, block 1004, lot 26. We'll make a motion that the minor subdivision, labeled minor subdivision for Paul Perkins, prepared by Lonamine, Kearns and Associates PC, last dated January 27th of this year. That Mr. Costa's comments in his letter of February 2nd of this year be resolved to Mr. Costa's satisfaction, and that Mr. Barrett's just mentioned adjustments be incorporated. And do we have some kind of a list of variances? Tom, maybe you have something that rather than trying to figure them out, we might have a list.
I'll do my best. And Mr. Barrett, correct me if I'm wrong. The variances that I have include the D6 height variance for the proposed addition to the dwelling on lot 26.01. The proposed addition will have a maximum height of 33.9 feet, where a maximum of 30 feet is allowed, and where the existing roof peak is 34 feet 8 inches. There is a C variance for the proposed minimum lot area of lot 26.02, where the proposed lot area is 7,098 square feet, where a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet is required. There's a C minimum lot width variance for proposed lot 26.02, which will have a non-conforming width of 65.23 feet, where a minimum width of 75 feet is required. There is a C minimum front yard setback variance for the dwelling on lot 26.01, where the southerly front of the building will have a non-conforming setback of 25 feet from the Howland Ave right of way, where a minimum setback of 30 feet is required. We have a C minimum rear yard setback for that same dwelling, the distance between the house and the westerly lot line of 5.4 feet, where a minimum of 25 feet is required. And finally, we have a C maximum driveway width variance that I believe applies to both lots. Technically applies to both lots because at the points where there are the turning areas, creates a width greater than the maximum permitted 22-foot driveway width. So those are the variances that I have accounted for.
Okay, following on, it's understood that the applicant, if this subdivision is approved, will come in with a full site plan for the new lot 2602 and 2601 will be revised accordingly as needed. At that time, the Howland Avenue eastbound signs will be erected, traffic signs will be erected to preclude left turn into either driveway. So I offer that, Mr. Chairman, as a start from which we can build upon.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
If I can just build on that, just the one thing with the reserving space for the patio and shed. I would request that for 400 square feet be allotted for shed and patio, plus the 1% that Mr. Barrett had mentioned. 120 square foot deck is much shorter, much smaller than what is typically asked for in this town. I think an average size patio would be about 300 square feet, and an average size shed would be about 80 square feet. So I'd ask for 400 square feet plus the 1%.
Barrett, is that acceptable?
Then, but less the 80 that we're already proposing, right? Or inclusive of, not in addition to.
Well, you had said you would leave open 1%, right? So that's the 80
No, I'm not talking about that. The 80 is the current patio. So the 400 would be inclusive of that. So another 320
Yeah.
is what? Okay.
Yeah. Because
No, I understand.
as we said earlier, they're going to come in, whoever owns this house is going to ask for a patio and a shed. And I want to have it there. I don't want anyone to have to come in to ask for what is typically
No, I
asked for.
understand. I just wanted to clarify on the, what we're showing versus what you'd like to see as a total. I understand.
Yeah. So either keep it available or build a bigger deck and put in a shed, whichever. I don't care.
I understand.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Anybody else from the board?
Mr. Chairman, just one point of clarification. I'm not sure if Mr. Merman is suggesting that the board retain jurisdiction for site plan approval, or if it's subject to Mr. Costa's approval of grading, drainage, et cetera. I think that was the primary concerns raised in Mr. Costa's letter. And that was one of Mr. Merman's points as well, that we have to address those, which obviously we agree with. So I just need a clarification on that.
Obviously, you have to resolve Mr. Costa's comments.
Correct.
Regarding site plan approval, I would like to see a site plan approval for this to make sure that all this has been incorporated. All right.
Well,
right now
only
we're subdividing. Right now we're basically
correct,
subdividing.
because our ordinance specifically excludes one-family houses from site plan approval. So that's why I'm trying to again clarify, so there's no misunderstanding going forward. So if we're going to comply with everything that Mr. Costa wants, I think that addresses your concerns, unless I'm mistaken.
There are site issues on here, on this site, particularly with 2602. And I don't think it would hurt if we had a quick site plan on this to make sure that all the things, particularly we're discussing tonight, are indeed incorporated, that nothing's been left out.
Right. I think the answer to your question, Mr. Barrett, is yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any further additions to the motion from the board? Okay. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bowen. Before we vote, Ms. Stiley, could you kindly read back for the benefit of the board members what is been moved for action, please, on this application?
Okay, so I may have missed something, so please interject. There's been a motion made for minor subdivision approval, creating lot 26.01 and lot 26.02 with the variances requested by the applicant for front yard setback for lot 26.01 along Howland Avenue, rear yard setback on lot 26.01, height variance for lot 26.01, a driveway width variance for lot 26.01 with a conforming driveway to be installed on lot 26.02, a lot area of a variance for lot area on lot 26.02, and a variance for lot width on lot 26.02. The applicant will incorporate adjustments stated by Mr. Barrett, including a note that lot 26.02, the proposed home will be reduced to provide a patio, deck, or shed with an area of approximately 400 square feet, which is inclusive of the 80 square feet for the proposed patio, with an additional 1% of improved lot coverage to spare. The applicant will provide full site plans, drainage, and plot plans inconsistent and compliance with the board engineer, and will comply with all county requirements and standard requirements of the board.
Did you include compliance with Mr. Costa's letter? I didn't hear that.
With the board, yeah, with the board engineers.
Okay.
Letter.
Got it.
And do we need to state anything about retaining on the site plan?
So under the borough ordinance, the board doesn't require, the borough ordinance does not require site plan approval for single family homes if they're compliant. So if the board would like to add that in, we can.
We just did.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then that will also be included.
Mr. Merman, yeah.
Just one question. I know on the roof height, we're going off what is it currently there. Do we need to specify that no further roof can reach that peak, or all new roof, or however to word it, that the rest of the house does not reach that height?
No problem from our end. That's perfect.
I know it's not on the plans, but just, I know things change.
That's fine.
So I don't know how we have to put that in, Ms. Steinle, but
I'm
you know,
sorry,
I'd just like to clarify that the current roof reaches whatever that number is, 34, whatever their max height is. The roofs that they're adding on are meeting our current requirements. I don't want any future roofs, because we're allowing the overall variance. I don't want them to now increase the entire house to that height. So just to prevent,
Okay,
only what is currently there is allowed to be at that height.
okay. So I don't know if Mr. Barrett.
May I just clarify what
I don't know, I'm not saying it right, but
I understand what you said, and I just want to confirm with our architect that the proposed addition, in fact, conforms, because I believe what you're saying, Mr. Gibbons, is that the addition should not exceed 30 feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if I may ask our architect, is that what we are proposing?
Yes, that is what we're proposing.
Point of clarification. I think the plan indicates that the addition is actually 33.8 feet, hence the D6 variance being sought.
So it matches or is less than what's there.
It's about a foot less or several inches less is my understanding of the situation.
I can just chime in. So on our plan, the existing height is 33.9 feet, and that peak is not changing. So the proposed roof height is still going to be 33.9 feet. The addition will be below the existing roof peak of the house.
So it will be above 30 feet.
Yes, I believe so.
That's why there was the D variance.
Right, I was under the impression that the D variance was to allow the pre-existing condition of 34,
It's both.
whatever that number is that the current peak is now. My impression was that we were allowing that to continue, not that we would allow future addition to this house to be over 30 feet.
But I think that's what was submitted to the board, was to be less than what exists, but in order to tie it in with the existing house.
Gentlemen, forgive me. We really appreciate the accommodations from the board. This is very easy. We will redraw it to be below 30 feet. That's easy, sir. We're very happy to comply with the statute. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to chime in like that.
No,
but
thank you. Makes
No,
it
that's
easier
great.
for all of us.
That's fine, because if it's my fault that I missed it, I apologize, but
No,
I
no, we
had
can
no intent
withdraw
of
it.
allowing it to continue to go higher to get to that point. So it would need to be 30 feet if I'm gonna say yes.
Very happy to do that. Thank you so much.
Just one other thing. Did you get driveway variances for both lots or just one? I thought I only heard the one.
I indicate, as a technical matter, I indicated for both lots because of
Right.
the turnaround areas.
Yes,
Again,
right,
it's
thank you.
just a technical.
Okay, we'll do the variance for both, driveway width variance for both lots. Up to 27 feet is what was requested.
Okay, Ms. Steinle?
Okay, I think that's everything. If that sounded like everything to you guys, I'll also go over the conditions with Mr. Barrett before the memorialization.
Okay. All right, with that, if you would be so kind as to call the roll, please.
I think you need a second, don't you?
No, we have one from Ms. Boland.
Oh, okay, sorry. No.
No, thank you.
Okay.
It's good. It's good you checking me. That's good. Appreciate it. I need to be checked.
Okay.
All right, sorry. Ms. Stein, when you're ready, please.
All right, Mr. Castleman,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman.
As previously stated, no.
Okay. Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
No,
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. This is a motion subject to higher scrutiny, but there were 5 affirmative votes.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We appreciate your consideration.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Barrett, and thank you to
Thank you.
your client as well.
Thank you all
Thank you.
very much.
Okay, good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have nothing further on the agenda this evening. Any good and welfare from the board? Okay. Appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness on this one. This was a hard one, and certainly a lot of thought went into this, and it was very professionally done as always, and really it's a privilege to work with you all and try to work these matters through. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
On that note, I will entertain a motion to close the meeting, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. May I have a second?
second.
Thank you. Pray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? There being none, we are officially closed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.